Hi everybody, my name's Casey and this is Momodora, Reverie under Moonlight. Have you ever played a game where in the first 5 minutes you knew you would love it? For me, personally, this is one of those games. So this is actually the fourth in a series of games, but it's a prequel, so apparently it's very open for newcomers to the series. You can just jump right in and not really need to have played the previous ones. So what first got me interested in this is that it was frequently compared to Dark Souls, and I love indie games that are inspired by Dark Souls, so immediately this was on my radar. Similarly, Salt and Sanctuary was one of my favourite games this year. Momodora is a little different though, in that it's not directly trying to be just like Dark Souls, like Salt and Sanctuary was, or Dark Mouse. There are of course similarities, but it really tries to be its own thing. It's very light on RPG elements, so you can, for example, upgrade your health or find items that will have different properties. This really works to the game's strengths. Just because it's influenced by Dark Souls doesn't mean it necessarily has to have full class system or lots of different stats that you can upgrade. It is comparatively super stripped down. But there are a lot of elements that will be very familiar to Dark Souls players, such as this bell, which is Momodora's stand-in for bonfires. It's your checkpoint and it will replenish your items, such as the bellflower, which is your healing item. It's similar to an Estus flask in the Souls games. Another big influence on this game is the classic Metroid and Castlevania games. The level layouts are very similar in that you unlock areas and go back and forth. Like, as you unlock new abilities, say for example you can transform into a cat later on in the game, and that allows you to access secret areas that were previously blocked off for you. So this sort of Metroidvania style game with Dark Souls influences, it just hits a really sweet spot for me. If it's done correctly, it can be fantastic. I know for some people the Metroidvania is somewhat oversaturated at the moment, but I think that once it's done well, like this, it doesn't matter. And I do think that goes for any genre at all. Even if it does seem to have been done to death, you look at first person shooters, and Wolfenstein The New Order was one of the best games I've played in recent years. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to make a really stunning game. And I think that's what the developer Bombservice have done really well. They've focused on some core mechanics that really work. It's got great level design, the characters are wonderful, it's well animated, the world is gorgeous, and the music is fantastic. Just nearly everything about it is wonderful. There are also some very memorable boss fights that are very challenging, but never seem completely unfair. In fact, the whole game feels like it's just the right difficulty. It's challenging without being frustrating. The enemies can and will hurt you, but even if you die, you're just back to the last spell you were at, so it's not a huge drawback. So a couple of issues that I will point out is, for one, the aspect ratio. that's fixed. The black borders either side can't be removed. The room size is going to be the same. So if that's something that you do have an issue with, keep that in mind. But it is obviously going for that retro 16-bit, 8-bit era. Another thing that I had an issue with was initially there was a lot of screen tearing, and there was nothing in the options that would fix that, and I had to go through the game's INI file to edit it to fix that issue, to turn on VSync. Other than that, I've had no technical problems with it, and it runs very well. So I don't think there's any other problems with the game that I could possibly point out, unless you're somebody who's not fond of the retro art style, in which case I think you'll know whether this game is for you just by looking at it. Personally speaking, I do love the retro pixel art style. It really pops. It's gorgeous to look at, and you have very anime inspired style there as well. You can kind of tell that there's that Hayao Miyazaki influence there, even down to the choice of music. It's wonderfully haunting and atmospheric, and the game is just all the more rich and gorgeous for it. The game is set in a land that's suffering from a curse, and the music really helps to sell that atmosphere there. It's haunting, it's got this great sadness to it. It's beautiful. And that is something that I do want to talk about, because a great soundtrack can really elevate a game. I don't think I would have played FTL as much as I had if it wasn't for that incredible soundtrack that just got into your head. And there are a great many other games where the soundtrack was what really drew me into the game. I think in general people don't appreciate how much of an effect the music of a game can have on your enjoyment of it. And here it just works so wonderfully well. As you go deeper into Momodora's world, the music gets darker and more foreboding. And the music for the boss encounters as well is equally fantastic. Sound-wise, it goes for that retro style as well, so if that's the sort of thing you don't like, then the sound mightn't be to your tastes, but everything sounds really distinct, so it's well mixed, it's well designed. The sound when you hit a shield, for example, it sounds really clear, defined. The sound when you fire an arrow, it's all really well done. So this is all the first level, so to speak. The whole thing, it's a bit of an open world, so it's not exactly levels as such, but it's divided into distinct zones, and this would be the first one, sort of forest area. So each area has its own unique kind of style to it, from the underwater grave to the kind of perpetual nighttime of Cursed City. It's really gorgeous. So I will say that Momodora Reverie Under Moonlight is one of the best games of 2016 so far. I fucking love it. And this is in a year where we've had Darkest Dungeon, we've had Salted Sanctuary, we've had Hyper Light Drifter. It's a fantastic game. Aside from the couple of issues that I mentioned, it's damn near perfect for what it is. You can see why the score on Steam is overwhelmingly positive. It's it just does what it does really well. It's challenging. You can see how tough this boss is. This is the first boss and she packs a wallop. She does a lot of damage. You have to be quite quick. So if that sounds good to you, then I highly recommend the game. It's not too expensive either. At full price, it's just under €10 on Steam. So if you've enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, maybe share, and I hope you'll be watching again. Thank you.